plan. I'd like to bring this meeting, February 22nd, 2023, Southern Shores Planning Board meeting to order, please. If you will rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Everybody satisfied with the agenda?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the agenda for February 22nd, 2023.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay. Go to the minutes of December 1st, 2022. I had a couple minor corrections. Let's see, on page 3, Wes, on line 102, it starts out, Chairperson Ward called on Kim Hamby to present her evidence. Probably need to distinguish who Kim Hamby is there. I mean, it's probably in attendance somewhere, but
The next sentence says applicant.
yeah, but probably need to identify who Kim Hamby is right out of the gate. So if you can just,
For applicants?
yeah. And I guess she would be the applicant representing the Timmons Group, right?
Yes.
I mean, I guess,
She's the property owner was Fire Service
yeah,
Real Estate.
yeah,
And she's the applicant's representative, Timmons Group. So
Mhm.
we can just refer to her as
yeah.
applicant.
Give her a long title. And then on 109, it says the end of the sentence, with the town planner. You might put your name with Wes Haskett, town planner, in there. And I think that was it. Now, I saw everything else look good. Anybody else see anything that jumps to mind?
No, they seem, look good to me.
Yeah. Okay, so with those corrections, I'll make a motion to vote on those corrections.
I'll
And-
second it.
Okay, all in favor of the corrected minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none? Okay. Obviously, we don't have public comment, a rare time where nobody's here. I'm gonna scratch through that. And we will move on into old business, which is the continued discussion of potential commercial design standards. I guess what we need to do is go back and everybody dig up that list that we got from Wes on the potential commercial design standards. He had about 10 or 12 bullets, points in there. So does everybody have that?
I brought it on the screen as well, if you want me to see it.
Okay, thanks. Well, What do you all feel about how this is presented so far? I mean, I got a couple of additions that weren't in those bullets, but does anybody else, have things that they want to add on that maybe we didn't catch the first time?
Well, I think I mentioned, in thinking about this, we have to take into consideration, there's certain stores that have a certain facade that is affiliated with that store. For instance, Wawa, which is moving into KDH. I don't know whether you're familiar with Wawa, but it looks a certain way. You have Royal Farms that is, I think it's Grandy. They're going into Grandy. That's a particular. Hypothetically, say Burger King decides to come back. That's a particular store. So do we have to, I think we have to look into proactively deciding what should we do with these stores that want to come in that have a predetermined facade, and how do we handle that?
Well, Taco Bell would be
Pardon me? Taco Bell's
Bell
a
would
perfect
an
example.
existing example of, I mean,
It's purple.
yeah. Probably about as eye-catching as anything you could imagine.
Yeah, and take into consideration, there could be renovations. Like we said, this will apply to renovations. So if a store decides to close down and one of these stores decides to take over that location, we have to consider how are we going to handle that?
Well, don't these regulations cover that? If you went for a color scheme that you want to hold for that parcel,
Mhm.
then it's either they adjust or find somewhere else.
I agree with you, but I think it's going to be tough with some of these.
But you're requiring a sketch plan review. So they should have the colors and the overhangs and the utilities. All of that should be in the sketch plan that we look at in the very beginning. And then bring up the points that don't fall into the requirements.
I think most of these stores will not fit the requirement. I mean, they just won't. Like McDonald's is bright yellow. We won't have a McDonald's because there's one across the street in all likelihood. But Burger King is bright red. It's just something that we, are we going to make these stores have this fit into this? Or do we have something there? How many properties, Wes, do we have much on 158? Or are there anything vacant properties on 158 now that they could put?
A commercial piece, the Stone Zone over here.
Yeah,
That has some frontage on 158. Stone, the Southern Shores Realty owned.
that's over
This
here.
piece over here in front of the Southern Shores Crossing Shopping Center next to the Realty office.
Gotcha.
Where the office, the rental maintenance building is over Southern Shores Maintenance Building that's a big parcel.
That's a big piece. Yep. It's one piece, but it's there.
So there is a possibility that something, I think if any of the ones that I mentioned has a possibility, I wouldn't be surprised with Royal Farms. And I don't have any information, but there's no gas station on that side of the street exiting.
I think gas stations are a prohibited use. On our
Is that a
list.
prohibited
I think
use?
so.
Okay.
What did Taco Bell have to do, to show what the facade and the exterior of it looked like, basically?
When they
Not
applied for the building permit, they submitted a set of building plans, just like you would a house, and on their elevation drawing sheet,
Yeah.
elevation sheets. All we can do is really just look at them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they when we receive a set of building plans, it does include an elevation drawing showing what the appearance, what's going to look like.
I guess the question would be, how do we go about, trying to do more consistent color scheme and allow something like the Taco Bell? I'm just asking, I don't know.
You're asking, how can we
How-
allow something like another
Yeah,
fast
another-
food
yeah,
restaurant
sure.
come in
Yeah.
with vibrant colors?
Yeah.
If
Right.
we put in a scheme of colors that don't portray those.
Yeah, hey, I'm all for it. Can we do that?
So,
Color scheme, I mean, what? I would imagine that we'd probably have to,
I've
Make
seen
it on a-
McDonald's that have conformed in other
Sure,
areas
yeah.
that, aren't,
mhm,
the bright. So
Yeah.
obviously they had to adhere to standards in that community. So, if they did it there, why not here?
when I worked with the town of Edenton, they had some architectural requirements, and I don't remember the way it exactly was worded, but it was like avoid bright colors,
mhm.
things like that. It didn't specifically say you can't have these colors,
Yeah,
but it was like avoid bright colors, because there's McDonald's there as well, and they had to adhere to that years and years ago.
I mean, avoiding is kind of like saying avoid
Yeah, that's
going
Squishy. word.
50 miles an hour down
Yeah.
here when avoid speeding. Well, people are going to speed.
Well, if you all,
Or
if
you
that-
can specify the colors.
Yeah,
If
sure,
you want
right.
earth tones or,
Mhm.
whatever. Yeah.
if you all are recommending that, and just a little bit of input from staff is that we are asking for the input from y'all, and we will put together a text amendment, and we'll be sure to run it by the attorneys to make sure that what we bring to y'all is something that is what we can do.
An
If y'all
idea I
want-
had, sorry.
And if y'all want to include a color scheme, or if you just want to have, guidance,
Yeah.
that's, however y'all want to do it, we'll put it in the text amendment and make sure that.
How do you feel about when we get to the moment that we're ready to do some ZTA work? We've got 3 towns that we have information that we're, looking to see how they've done it traditionally over the years. And if we got the ZTA kind of moving in the right direction, maybe we do a separate cover sheet or something, an addendum for us. It would be for anybody, but an addendum for us with, maybe footnotes on where this came from and or highlight where, like, for instance, the 8-foot wide covered walkways might be from Duck or might be from Kill Devil Hills. And it would be helpful to see, well, that's where this came from. This was our source for this thinking. So maybe, the ZTA would have to be a little bit more buttoned up, but then we'd have an addendum that would show, where this idea originated and so forth. So,
Reference guy.
yeah. We don't need to write a book on this, I don't think, but,
I like the idea of some referencing the other towns.
yeah.
That a similar requirement is found in KDH and
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Just, we're not pulling this out of thin air.
No. And, it happens, everybody pulls off everybody else. We're kind of the new kid on the block in some regards, but, Kill Devil Hills, Kitty Hawk, and Nags Head all have, put their time into doing, or no, we've got Duck,
Kill
Kill Devil
Hills,
Hills, and
And next.
Nags Head, yeah. So anyway, let's just look down this list, going from the top, sketch, plan, review. Talk about colors. I mean,
Before you finish the sketch plan review, that's required now anyway, is that correct?
The sketch plans are voluntary. If they want to do, I can't remember which special use permit, but there's no required sketch plan review
Mhm.
right now.
Okay. So they would just if they don't do a sketch plan review, they would just submit their plans
Well, right now,
for
if it's,
construction or for.
right now, if it's a permitted use by right, which can be approved administratively, if it doesn't require a special use permit, then it would just come through the planning department. And it would be an administrative review.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
If a sketch plan review, isn't that typically an administrative activity as well?
No, you can have sketch plan reviews like, I think our subdivision ordinance refers to sketch plan reviews for certain types of subdivisions where the plan is, and I think that's where it's voluntary.
I guess where I was getting was require a sketch plan review. We maybe need to add something to that would include the
That is-
planning board
That is the
or.
board, yes, yes, specify, I see.
Specify who would receive that information.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll say by a planning board.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so going down to colors, it says don't allow bright colors and allow earth tone and neutral colors, limit color schemes to 2. And I would probably, in where it says limit color schemes to 2, maybe 2 on the building per se, and then that wouldn't include maybe the trim or some accent pieces.
Yeah, what do we mean by color schemes?
Yeah,
Because a color scheme, I think of as having like 5 or 8
Mhm. Yeah,
colors in it.
Right,
It's
Well,
like you,
it says-
like the blue scheme or the pink scheme.
right.
yeah.
Sort of thing. I don't know.
I think the nuances of that would have to be fairly spelled out to make it, have any teeth. Maybe
Are
the
you
colors.
Are you saying 2 color schemes actually being placed on the property? I mean, or
Well, I mean, what-
presented in the sketch plan.
I'm reading what Wes put out there, which says don't allow bright colors and allow earth tone and neutral colors. I mean, it's kind of hard to define. I mean, we know it when we see it, but I mean, one person's earth tone might be different than the other person's.
Well, neutral color is also black, solid black.
Yeah.
So, you know, the only question I had was limit color schemes to 2. But I didn't understand what that means.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Well, instead of having, multiple colors, the one that comes to mind to me is the one on the causeway. It's been there for a long time on the south side of the Manio Causeway, a bunch of little shops that, they look like Easter eggs out there.
oh, right,
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah, right.
And I mean, that's a,
Caribbean look.
yeah,
Yeah.
So,
okay for a while, but, nobody keeps up with that stuff.
I see. Color schemes to 2 for,
But
I don't know, adjacent.
maybe we say that they need to be consistent rather than separate colors for different sections of building. I'm
That's
just
a
Yeah.
good way to put it.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
all buildings within the development should have a
a consistent,
cohesive.
yeah. And most people, I think, would be reasonable and understand that earth tone and neutral colors.
Yes, calm down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And maybe even, for example, put a couple of, colors in there,
If the town
tan or,
If the town actually was branding itself, then, we would probably have some, standard colors. I know the logo and the website they all have specific colors that they use every time they use. And I don't know that that's necessarily a branding thing for the town, but
Mhm.
yeah, that chair, tan and blue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I would say that the color schemes, limiting the color scheme to two.
Now, you're talking about base color and trim color?
Yeah.
Trim
Maybe,
is allowed as,
I mean, if you did two different color schemes, maybe your,
your trim is,
yeah, would be separate from those two main color schemes on the
Okay, that's
building
fine.
itself. If you had a front facade,
Right,
that
and your
was a
window
different color
color,
than.
and
than
your
the-
window color would be something else.
Right, it could
But
be,
it's not the two that you're talking about.
Right,
It would be a
right.
third
yeah. Does that make sense?
unacceptable.
Okay. All right. Any-
I like your idea though of the blue family and the neutral, tan or beige family to,
Yeah. I don't
so
know.
that people don't come with, a purple and a mauve and say, well, we got two colors and they are,
Yeah, I think limiting the color, the number of colors, is the kind of thing, to me, that makes more sense perhaps. Limit the number of colors as much as possible. I mean, again, the sketch plan review, I'm assuming is sort of.
well, and leaving earth tones and neutral in there so they know that when they submit, and on the sketch paint plan, maybe when you put in that it's reviewed by the planning board, and, paint colors to be part of the sketch plan.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like a homeowners association. Before you painted your house, you had to submit the color that you were going to paint it. So, if we're going to do this and do it fairly, we should let them know
Yeah.
in the sketch plan that you submit the paint colors as well.
So we could maybe just change it to just one bullet that just says limit color schemes. And use earth tone and natural colors, or just
Mhm.
Right.
get rid of the two.
Yeah. I think that would be adequate to put in a ZTA, and if we want to tweak it after we, get the ZTA in hand, I don't think that would be that big a deal. Okay, so moving down that list, screen utilities, HVAC units, and solid waste receptacles, that's pretty cut and dry. I would,
I don't know how y'all feel about it, but I would add, not allowing for white plastic fences.
I saw that in Kildover Hills. I think Kildover Hills had it where if you had a fence, it had to be metal.
Had to be metal.
whoa.
I think I did see something like that. But I asked Kim Hamby the question about the fence around the fire station, and she said that it was, standard wood stockade fence. And there are people that use white plastic fence and fine, but it doesn't really blend in like a wood fence does.
Mhm.
A wood fence really sort of blends into the neighborhood a little better than a stark white one. But, that's residential.
Yeah.
Can't really do anything about that. Everybody's got their own taste, and that's fine. But commercial, it's something to consider. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people screen with lattice, they'll do the basket weave lattice or,
Mhm.
so that's definitely got to be wood, or it should be. I mean,
Not necessarily.
Yeah,
They make
but you see it.
PVC,
they get some real pretty slats.
they make PVC slats too. Like,
Well-
but anyway, it's just something to think about whether you guys want to go to that level or not.
I don't have a problem with putting,
Well, the screen,
constructed of wood.
yeah, the screen utilities, that would still follow with the paint scheme of the building.
It's a good point.
Yeah, they can paint the,
It could be, yeah.
yeah.
So that would pretty much make it wood so that they could paint it the same color as the building.
Well, maybe just add Wes, constructed of wood and after solid waste receptacles.
Right.
Or to match the
Match
the-
match
the structure.
The building structure.
Yeah.
Or the building structure paint scheme.
Either plain wood or match the structure. I don't really want a big purple fence covering up the, so color, maybe the color scheme's not.
Okay, the next one down is kind of tricky. Building should have a residential appearance. And really, I mean, if you think about it, Southern Shores Crossing does a pretty good job. I mean, to me, that has a residential appearance look to it. It's got, the false dormers up there and
But that doesn't allow itself for a big box.
that's what,
I mean, I'm just saying, when you talk about commercial design, Southern Shores Crossing doesn't lend itself to the big box coming in, which is what some commercial property people may be looking for.
is that, do we want big box? I mean,
Well,
are
if
are
we
we here
don't
to
want big
accommodate
box-
big box?
Well, then are you
Yeah.
going to limit your size to
Yeah.
10,000?
Yeah.
Because you have no limitation on how
Mm-hmm.
large a building. So should we limit it to a 10,000 square foot building?
That would eliminate Southern Shores Crossing, Food Line, all that stuff. I mean, roughly how many square feet is the marketplace?
The marketplace altogether? I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
150,000
Well,
square
we're
feet?
talking per building.
Yeah, per building. but-
Marshalls and Racker Room will be 30, just
Yeah.
them two.
Yeah.
So Food Line is more than that.
And drugstore, yeah.
So, I mean, that's what, so if Southern Shores Crossing wanted to put in another grocery store, would we say would we take that parcel and say you can't put it in?
Right, right.
Because there's only so many small stores you can put in this commercial area.
Mhm. You talking about in an existing store over there?
No, I'm just
To
saying
build.
a commercial property. I guess you have to say, if you're gonna have a commercial property developed, what's the largest commercial space that they can build, lease out?
Right.
You
Like
know,
a Trader Joe's,
An
it's not
anchor,
as
an
big
anchor store.
as a
Some people
food
may say,
line.
I want to anchor it with a Trader Joe's
Right,
and then have all these little shops around it left and right.
right.
So that's the typical way of a commercial thing is they have a large anchor store.
I would think we'd fall back on, what the lot coverage is for commercial applications. And that, as long as they adhere to the lot coverage that is established in the commercial district, which is what, Wes?
60% or 67 if it's a group development, they use
Yeah.
permeable pavement.
I mean, how do we,
Yeah, but these people that kind of come in, they're gonna rent from probably the owner. And they'll say, we'll build it out, and I don't know if the gentleman who owns the shopping center is gonna sell them the land. They'll lease it, much like what goes on over here, right? Isn't that what they do?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about Southern Shores Crossing or the marketplace, it would just be a tenant upfit.
Right.
They're not going to do anything on the exterior. They're just going to rent the space and change the interior.
Yeah.
That's all they would do.
So we were talking about the appearance, the residential appearance. And then a little bit further down, there's a bullet that says require breaks in the facades and roof lines. I think those two are kind of related, that, yes, it's a big giant, building that has been subdivided, but we're requiring breaks like in a long one. And if they're, for individual shops, then you can change facade and roof lines and things like that, maybe. Put little pitches up. The idea of having it be residential in appearance,
Yeah, I don't see.
I don't
don't
really
know.
understand
Yeah,
that
Houses in
exactly.
Southern Shores.
I mean, I sort of get it like what they've done in Nags Head, where they have this brand of the old unpainted cottages and they want that sort of replicated in their town. But the only one we have here is, the thing that I think we really do have is flat tops. It's truly the only indigenous architectural style for the Outer Banks, but I don't know that how we could regulate, putting that into a commercial design standard.
Well, two commercial buildings that come to mind would be this one, over here at Southern Shores Crossing. It does have a residential feel, and as big as the town bank is up there, it looks like a really big stately house to me. I mean, that's residential look. I mean, if you're going that route, it looks completely different than Southern Shores Crossing. But I'm not
Well, you go
quite,
across the bridge there, and left and right, you see that commercial development there, and it's all residential looking.
Mhm.
But that's for small businesses,
Yeah.
lawyers and things like that. Just looking at, someone wants to put something, if somebody wants another grocery store, could they do it in Southern Shores? Would this new commercial design standard allow for something like that?
I think you could probably, you could say, like you were saying, like the use of dormers or the use of gable bars or gable brackets, like put in parentheses after it or something like
Yeah.
that.
Limiting the size of the windows, yeah.
We can take a stab at we'll try to try to take a stab at that for you.
Well, I'm looking just some notes that I had scribbled down last time where this came from Duck, where what you were talking about, Robert, the break in the wall and roof line every so many feet. I think Duck had every 50 feet, 50% of the horizontal distance shall be windows at street level, constitute 20 to 50% of the front facade, something, that creates breaks. And that would, once again, be something we pull out of maybe Duck that would get footnoted, and, you could operate with similar language crafting the ZTA. But I don't know, strictly just putting in a ZTA building should have a residential appearance if that,
No, that wasn't the idea. This was just capturing the discussion. You all had.
yeah, I mean, and we were batting that around.
Yeah.
Certainly. Let's see, requirements should apply to renovations, which that would be kind of a given anyway.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask about that. So like, for example, in the marketplace or in Southern Shores Crossing, you got an empty unit and somebody's moving in there. That's a renovation. How are you, or do y'all want to require them to do something on the exterior that would apply just to that space when the rest of the spaces don't conform to that? I didn't think so, but that's so I was going to say that this would apply to freestanding structures only, like.
But only if it's outside, then they submit a sketch plan. So again, a sketch plan of what changes that they're going to be doing. But if they're not changing the exterior, if it's already existing and they're just modifying the interior. But if you're changing the exterior, a sketch plan would be required.
If they're making exterior changes. only.
Exactly.
Right.
Then a
So even-
sketch plan would be required.
So even like Taco Bell, if they want to make any exterior changes, then
Exactly.
that's when that's the trigger.
Yeah.
Is there a dollar threshold or a percentage threshold that y'all want to look into as far as the renovation goes?
I wouldn't have a clue
Yeah.
about that. Maybe
I mean, because if
Research
they're
it
changing
and
the
throw
paint
something in there.
color of the outside, it would have to still pertain to these earth tones, and a sketch plan would let us know what the new paint colors are, right?
Well, you
If they're
hate
just
to,
painting, they're not gonna get they won't get a permit.
That's what I was gonna say. If they're just gonna paint,
Yeah.
we probably won't know about it until
Yeah.
after they're either doing
Yeah.
it or after it's done.
and you kind of hate to
Well,
not
that
have
defeats
something
the
in,
purpose then.
Yeah.
So,
well, you hate to have something not in place before they would come in and do the site plan, and then you go, oh, well, we're looking at this, and we need for you to do this, 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 and this. I mean, the more we have buttoned up that we can refer back to in the ZTA, that would be an ordinance eventually, the more ambiguous it is, the harder it gets to sit down with somebody and review a site plan. So I
so
think,
if you're changing the exterior, i.e. to include painting, then you submit a sketch. Let us see what the new paint color scheme is going to be. If it agrees with our earth tone and neutral,
We'll try to put something in there about that and we'll look at it when it's ready.
Yeah, back in, Chickahook and, when you want to paint your house, you have to submit the color. It's sort of a perfunctory function, but it does catch one or two houses that are going off the rails with the color selection. It's caught them, So why not with the commercial?
gets a little trickier when a covenant bleeds over to an ordinance.
Well,
Like I said, right now, these are all just suggestions and just guidance, so we'll put together a ZTA and we can comb through it and see what we like and don't
Yeah.
like and see if
well-
we like it or not.
The high points that I kind of snagged out of Ducks was the awning width ratio to the sidewalk, that's in there somewhere. The additions and new constructions shall use compatible finishes, meaning that they're matching. I mean, this is language out of Ducks. Break in the wall roof at least every 50 feet. At least 50% horizontal surface shall be, I don't even know where that was, I stopped writing, but windows at street level constitute 20 to 50% front facade. I think in those pictures that we had, Wes, from last time, I took a picture of wings there in Duck, and somehow that didn't, that didn't quite look like they were adhering to what the
They did the
design
break-
standard was.
They did the break every 50 feet, but
Yeah, yeah.
definitely not the minimum of the 50% windows.
right.
Yeah, the windows, I think there was way too much glazing for what Duck spelled out in their commercial standards. So,
That's an example of what I was saying. That's their standard, that's Super Wing standard building.
Right.
If you go to any Super Wings, like up and down, that's what it pretty much looks like that.
from Myrtle Beach to Long Island.
Well, I don't know, but Myrtle
Probably.
Beach, I haven't been down to Myrtle Beach, but for a long time.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying earlier. So it looks like Duck, part of it is what their ordinance, and some of it isn't. And the windows aren't. Is that, and it could be due to the fire, when that fire, could they get grandfathered back into how the building used to look?
Hmm.
You're running into that type of
Yeah.
thing. Because the fire says, okay, we will replace X.
Well, but if it destroyed over 50% of the building, that building was a total loss. So they would have to adhere to current standards when they build back. But it may be that they didn't have their architectural standards in place when that was rebuilt.
Could be.
I don't know.
Nor did they ask for a sketch plan.
In this example, what would we do in the sketch
Limit-
plan? No red roof?
Well, actually, I think we would probably want to dial the glazing down, just because you ride by that store at night and, boy, she's lit up in there.
Yeah.
They got halogen streetlights in there, I think. But, I would definitely say, Wes, that if you look through those three towns, there is a pretty reasonable ratio of glazing to wall surface.
Now, you're talking wall surface all the way up to the top of the beige, right?
Well, I'm talking about from left to right.
I know, but I'm up to down and up to go into the calculation of wall surface area. You're going from the curve
Horizontal wall surface.
up to the beige parapet. I mean, because if you include the parapet and the roof, you probably have 40%, 45% of the area is covered with glass. So it's like, well, and if it wasn't, they could just make that little parapet up another couple of feet and be covered.
Well,
So you have to, like,
But you said what you said. You said it's linear.
yeah,
So
horizontal roof
it's the
structure.
horizontal, so if you've
wall
got 100
structure.
feet, then you can only have glazing along X number of that,
Yeah,
50 feet of that.
so the height, but we're talking about glazing though, and the amount of glazing that you can have as a percentage of the total surface area of what's being presented to it there. So, what we're trying to do is to make that glazing
small.
shorter,
Right.
not as tall.
More, as a percentage, a lot less than, that glazing there on the horizontal wall structure from left to right, not including the tower or those triangles and the fake dormers there. Shoot, that's gotta be 85% glass and a little bit of, exterior surface. So we want to tone that percentage down, the best way we can. I will leave that up to, Wes pouring through there, but they definitely, and I even think John Finelli, what he sent us, on the front and each side of the building, windows shall comprise not less than 10% and not more than 40% of each building vertical wall area. That's 85% there. So not less than 10 or more than, 40%.
40%.
Would be a huge improvement in the light flying out of that building at nighttime.
Instead of the 4 panels, you'd go to 2 panels.
Yeah, however they decided to do it.
Well, wouldn't you say that the vertical limit of a glass panel is X number of feet? Because that right there is, what are they? 8, 10 feet?
I would say it's
Panels?
probably 10 feet, yeah.
So then you would say
Well,
glass panels not to exceed 8 feet, 6 feet
Mhm.
height?
I would say the percentage of, the ratio between horizontal wall surface and glazing they could put it wherever they wanted.
And it could
But
be-
10% seems kind of light.
Yeah, no, nobody's gonna do 10%.
Yeah, that's really.
Yeah, that
It
would
would be a cave.
Yeah. No light.
It looked like that building in Columbia, what is it? The
Masonic Lodge.
Masonic Lodge.
A lot
Don't
of
have
them-
any
a lot of
windows.
50.
Okay, well, I mean, we can tweak this all around, but I mean, we got to give Wes some
Something.
direction to get a ZTA at least in the works. So going back to the bullets, let's see. Well, glazing storefront, we just went through that. And I think the next one required covered walkways for multi-tenant buildings, group development. Doug has a 2/3 requirement. That would be, I would say, a good suggestion. And
What is a 2/3 requirement?
Covered walkways for like an awning or something. If you had a 10-foot walkway, you'd have to cover 2/3 of it. Is that
I
right?
think that's right.
Yeah, coming out from the building. So,
Yeah, I wish we had this in place before Marshall's was being built. You don't really see it until you walk from the grocery store to the drugstore, and it's like, here's the moon right there.
yeah.
You know, it doesn't have that
Can-
small
can-
town feeling.
Can you pull up the food marketplace? I mean, that's the Realty building, and yeah, that looks real good. I mean, they've got, some nice earth tone colors, awnings. Looking down, what happens? That's just,
Well, I've come to appreciate those covered walkways that are all the way around there. You
yeah,
know, when you're standing out looking at them,
yeah.
it's not the prettiest thing in the world necessarily, but it really does
Mhm.
make a shopping experience.
Well, it's walk around it out of the sun, out of the rain.
That's right.
But I mean, there's a prime example of paint schemes. I mean, that's old, dead looking, one in the background and the one up front with the awnings. They've redone it, and it just needs to be
Unified.
consistent.
Yeah.
And that,
They've done some, they've painted recently.
they-
We should
they-
I
really-
haven't.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
Yeah,
Oh, it's all
it's
beige.
It's all beige.
Yeah,
They've done
but-
everything the same
yeah.
color now.
Mhm. All the way through?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I
They've
haven't,
painted all the
I haven't
green
been by
to
there.
the beige, all the
Everything's-
metal's been painted. Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks
everything's the
actually
same
very
color.
nice.
yeah, everything's the
Mhm.
same.
but I mean, that's a good example of it being, cohesive in paint scheme.
I'm surprised. I didn't realize they were doing the entire parking lot.
Hmm.
They're doing it all the way over by the Farm Bureau and
Good.
everything. Yeah.
They're resurfacing, they're putting in new parking areas and new parking spaces per the site plan for in front of Marshall's and Raccoon, but they're gonna resurface and mill and fill, they said mill and fill, other parts of the parking lot, which is sorely needed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they've started to dig out the section by the Farm Bureau.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just using that for an example. There's a pale blue with green standing seam roof onto a beige, and it's all
A little
the
confused.
Easter egg looking facade there, but I'm glad they're heading in the right direction for continuity.
Well, and this is a good time to be doing this because that is all neutral tones.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's the largest thing you see as you come across the bridge.
Yeah.
And now if we can continue that,
Yeah. Okay, so moving down, require 8-foot covered walkways for group developments. That would be, that's a group development right there.
Marketplace, Silver Shore Crossing.
How about, we really didn't get too far into, mixed use group development requirements. So, it's certainly a different animal.
Sago did volunteer that he's having all covered walkways.
Well,
We'll see if that's what happens, right?
but what if we put that in, require 8-foot covered walkways for all group and mixed-use developments?
Are there any of these that we wouldn't want for all mixed use?
What's that?
Are there any of these that we would not want for mixed use developments?
That's a good point.
I don't know.
Say, it's commercial,
It's a commercial building.
With
it's a commercial building.
residential.
I mean, it's in a commercial zone.
Yeah, I would think that it would be commercial design standards for mixed use and group development.
Well, I think maybe what we were trying to say is group developments is you have multiple buildings on one lot instead of just one building.
In group development, yeah. But the standalone buildings would still be a small version of a bigger development.
Right, but
But
they might not necessarily have a walkway.
yeah. Now, there's certainly some things that are specific to mixed-use group development that may not apply to some of these things that we're talking about. So maybe stick your toe in, Wes, when you're putting the CTA together, and maybe we, I don't know, where we go with mixed use.
I'll give it some thought.
But it's certainly something that we need to,
You have to address, I think, down the road.
and then the require breaks in the facades and the roof line. I know Duck had one, I think it was every 50 feet.
I would think that would go by the business that's in there. By the arbitrarily say every 50.
Finelli said, wall elevations and roofs greater than 50 horizontal feet in length shall have no more than 40 horizontal feet without a roof variation. Where it is an offset, or, instead of having one straight line, it bumps out. I mean, the marketplace is a good example of those facade variations. It's jumping in and out. Yeah, I mean, all these things are hopping in and out. I mean, it's just not one long unbroken wall. It's got,
Yeah, but they're
Variations.
broken by the use, the business use.
yeah.
I don't see.
But if Dollar Tree and CVS were all one big store, and it was, that whole facade was one long, shoot, that's probably, I don't know, pushing 75 feet from the edge of CVS to the far edge of Dollar Tree. And you wouldn't want to see something like that
As one-
unbroken, I don't think. But anyway, that's where that comes from, is, just bumping roofs in and out, or,
What about what about Food Lion bringing its facade right on up to the curb? Where you don't walk under a thing.
Oh, where the glass is. I
You
know what
walk,
you're talking about.
Yeah.
That seems a little strange, if everybody else could do that. Or is it just something that Food Lion did?
well, but I
It
guess
doesn't have the break that we're talking about.
Uh-huh.
It
would
doesn't
be-
have a walkway.
Right,
no.
still have to have a break though.
Yeah, there's no walkway.
But if there was language in there that broke the, every 50 feet, or you couldn't go more than 40 feet without a break, or something reasonable like that. 40 feet might not be the magic number, but
I don't know, it looks to me like they sort of meet that. They have broken it up with the, with the standing seam and then the arch in the
Mhm.
center and stuff. It's broken up.
Yeah, I mean, really, when it all gets finished and tied together, it's really not gonna be that bad of a look, I don't think.
Well, would we have Food Line going light there behind the letters?
What?
Should it be beige
Uh,
rather than light beige?
Well, that's your second color tone.
Okay, all right,
And then
okay.
I
That's
don't know
fine.
if they wanted to trim around the
No,
top
I
of
mean,
that
then,
thing.
so then you go down to CVS and those places, they could do the same thing. They could put a white,
Potentially, yeah, I
light
suppose.
beige panel in there with,
Just don't want it purple.
right.
Yeah, now, there's no break there other than those arches. There's no bump in anything. That curtain wall up top there is trying to hide heat and air units. You can see the brace back. But, it's kind of got the southwestern look going to it. But there's certainly no break in that whole wall from end to end. I think that's what we're trying to avoid. So require breaks in facades and roof lines. That would be a good example of where we're striving to make it look a little bit more of an architectural standard. Moving along the bullets, decrease the number of required parking spaces to allow for more landscaping. I mean, how can we do, I don't know, some kind of ratio of give credit for putting landscaping islands? You got any feel for that, Wes, as far as
Credit towards what?
like lot coverage, or, we're giving credit for,
Parking lots are the ugliest things about these things.
yeah,
Like over here,
Yeah.
the giant parking lot that's always empty most of the time. Most of these parking lots,
yeah, there's way more parking
Yeah, just-
spaces than are needed.
and they're ugly.
Yeah. But, just as we give an additional 7% of lot coverage for, pervious pavement, maybe we could come up with,
So instead of saying decrease the number of required parking spaces to allow for more landscaping, why don't we do the same thing that we're breaking up these long walls with? For every certain area of parking spaces, you have to have landscaping, and then, in other words, figure out a ratio of landscaping that's in the parking lot. In other words, figure out the ratio of paved area, and now you have to have a landscaped area, and then you can have another paved area. But stipulate versus limiting the parking spaces, that doesn't help us with the landscaping. So what we need to do is make it a rule that for so many feet of concrete parking space, you have to have so many feet of landscaping.
got any ideas on,
Yeah, that's all I needed in the moment.
I think it, like Ed said, there's way more parking than ever gets used in any commercial building in Southern Shores. Maybe we need to relook at that formula and dial it down a little bit to create more opportunity for landscaping islands within, I don't know how you're gonna do it, but.
Yes, sir.
You could, like we said, we have 7% for the pervious.
Mhm.
Why couldn't we put a percentage for landscaping?
Mhm.
Just make it a flat percentage for landscaping, like, I'm just throwing numbers out, say 5% or 10%, whatever. But just throw that out as, that way it'll be easier to work with, I think. And it gives incentive where they'll see 7% and then another 5% if you landscape it.
I mean, basically what it's doing is allowing maybe the building to be a little bit larger because the lot coverage is parking lot and
Right.
building. So maybe it gives the opportunity to have a larger building footprint, but be able to get that credit with landscaping islands or
Yeah.
however.
Yeah, it might, I think the landscaping should be in, it can't be, it has to be big enough
Yeah.
to do something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not small enough
Yeah,
that you
not
can only
little.
put in these little
Yeah.
Bradford pears,
Mhm.
you know, that you need to be able to sustain.
And
Well-
the bigger the parking lot,
Mhm.
the bigger the percentage of
Yeah.
landscaping.
Yeah,
Well, and you could put a minimum square footage on even putting a landscape island in. You know, say it's got to be at least, 250 square feet.
50 by 50.
Yeah, instead of,
Yeah.
6 inches around
Something
with
substantial.
Yeah.
a Russian hawthorn in the middle of it. I don't know. But the next bullet down, it says, after decrease the number of required parking spaces would be add space requirement for open space landscaping. So we just talked about that. I had added a bullet in there as far as roof pitch goes. Kill Devil Hills, I know their minimum is a 412 roof pitch, and I think we probably need to put a minimum roof pitch in there. I mean,
What about a
412s.
flat top? What about a flat top?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I
If
guess
it's
if you're,
pitched.
yeah, well, if you're having
if it's one story.
Okay.
yeah, if it's more than 3 degrees of,
I don't know how you do the roof pitch because, okay, we've got Taco Bell. I think that's a flat top-ish.
Well, they're all gonna be flat top.
yeah,
You just gotta put a facade on them.
With a
on the
parapet.
front.
yeah.
Yeah, on the parapet. So that's kinda,
Mhm.
it's not really. it doesn't-
When the roof is visible, when the roof,
The,
how about that? If the roof is visible,
Right.
then you can require a pitch.
Well, over at Ginglite Creek, the side of, those buildings aren't flat tops. They're not facades, hiding HVAC or anything. I mean, they're gonna be regular stick-built roofs, I would imagine, up there, or trusses or what have you, but they're definitely gonna be a pitched roof line up there. So I think we need to put a minimum, if there is a roof,
If you can see the roof, it's gotta be,
yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
you know,
Any roof other than a flat roof needs to have at a minimum 4 and 12 pitch.
yeah, I will go with that.
Okay. Anybody else got anything for Wes on directing him towards starting a ZTA out of all this?
We talked about it, but we didn't come to any agreement about size. Did we want to limit the size of a box that comes?
I don't know, Wes, what would be reasonable to limit the footprint of a one freestanding building? I mean, And remember, over at the marketplace, that's what, 2 buildings?
Yes.
Plus Marshall's is now 3.
Well, no, it's Marshall, it's all, it's still gonna be
Marshall's
2
standalone.
buildings. It's still gonna be 2 buildings.
Yeah, so it's just, that's 2 buildings.
I don't know what that square footage is altogether, all in.
Yeah,
We can come back and we can revisit that.
Okay.
We can look into that.
yeah, well, all we can do is look at the ZTA and go, that doesn't work, or, but, I mean,
Yeah, I'm just thinking, Marshall's is a big building, but Target is even a bigger building.
It is.
And
we don't
if,
have,
well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if they, eliminated everything over there and put in a Target, I mean, now is the time to decide whether we want that or not, just by limiting the size of
But
the building.
how can you tell someone that owns a big, large parcel that they don't get the lot coverage of 60 to 67%? I mean,
You do get the lot coverage, you just don't, the individual
Exactly,
business,
the
Exactly.
freestanding building.
exactly,
individual
Exactly.
business
Yeah.
can't be,
right,
exceed X number of feet.
right.
Like we have a maximum square footage of enclosed living space for a house.
Exactly.
Right.
Six.
6,000.
It'd be like having something similar for commercial structures.
And I have a question about the sketch plan review. How much authority for variances or variety or whatever? Like if somebody came in and we said there's a limit of 10,000 for any business. Somebody came in for a business that is highly desirable, everybody wants it. Can we allow 12? I mean, would the sketch plan review process allow for a non-elected board to make those kinds of changes, or would have to come back as like a variance?
As they pertain to architectural requirements,
Yeah.
I think if you have a sketch plan review, you all would be reviewing it to make sure that it meets the requirements, whatever is adopted. So
And
you're asking-
we wouldn't have the authority to.
You're asking if they disagree and they want to get around a requirement,
Right.
what avenue do, I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to research that.
I think it would be somewhere between a casual, friendly review and an official review. I mean, I
Yeah,
think it
well-
would head things off at the pass for something that might be glaring that we could offer.
Well, my thought right now is that you all would say, here's the sketch plan review, we disapprove it. They can still move forward with their
Sure.
submittal later
Yeah.
on. You can say, we disapprove it, and then the council disapprove it,
Mhm.
and then they go to Superior Court, whatever they want.
When I did this for the ARB,
Mhm.
we reviewed every plan. And we sat around a table, there was 5 of us, kind of like this, and we reviewed a plan. And there were times where the plans were disapproved.
Mhm.
And then you go into negotiating with the individuals that submitted the plan. And most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, there was compliance and agreement. And it was, I can think of 3 times where we actually had to take it, where it went to lawyers.
Mhm.
So there is that ability, and that was a non-elected panel that reviewed for the ARB.
I'm thinking the restriction, like 10,000 square feet for a single business. And somebody comes along and says, we really want to put a Trader Joe's there. Trader Joe's really only takes 12, or maybe they take 10. I don't know if it's a highly desirable thing.
Yeah,
I don't have any problem with putting the restriction in as our intention, but people should have the opportunity, times change.
Yeah, to talk, yeah.
They should have the opportunity to do something else, or at least try to.
Robert, research the size of a Trader Joe's. Is it 15? Will you limit it to 15?
We'll put this at 15.
Well, I'm still having a hard time with limiting how we would limit. I mean, for instance, Southern Shores Crossing, that's way, I don't know how many square feet it is, but I mean, the building
But it's
itself,
individual. It's like individual,
you're not
yeah, we're just talking individual businesses.
businesses
Can
within.
exceed, much like the living area in a single-family home is 6,000. So the individual business cannot exceed 10,000 if that's the
Well,
number we
what
come
Unless
up
it's a
with.
grocery.
What did we
store.
do at Marshall's? How many square feet? is that?
Marshall's is 24,000.
So we would,
And that was allowed as a freestanding building with
Retail-
6,000 square foot.
Retail,
Oh.
rack room is 6,000, Marshall's is 24,000.
so you have to decide if you want to just keep it down to small businesses.
Well, do
And
you
basically knock
do you
out,
feel like Marshall's is a small business in the scope of things? I don't know. I mean,
relative to the
it's
area.
smaller than Food Line by a long shot.
I don't think any of the other three towns requirements limited square footage, but I know Kiowa Hills had different categories for different requirements, like over 100,000 square feet had certain requirements
Right.
for the architectural requirements. And then there was 10,000, I don't remember but there were different categories, but they didn't put out a flat prohibition on certain sizes.
We don't have a lot of big areas that can take another huge store. I mean, if you're looking at, trying to keep a town look, if it's individual, again, you could have multiple businesses and they can be 10,000, 8,000,
Right.
7,000. That will give you a big
Mhm.
complex, but
So-
it's just not a big,
What
stores.
what you're wanting is an individual business may not exceed X amount of square feet.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, I think that is fair. I mean,
We got our grocery store, we got our Marshalls, we don't want any more.
well, I mean, town bank's probably 8,000 square feet.
I don't disagree with the limitation
I don't even,
because, there's that whole other wing where the pizza place is and all that
Mhm.
stuff. And, somebody may come to Alston and
Sure.
say, we want to put a whatever there.
yeah,
And they'll
when you,
tear it down and rebuild it.
you think about it, outside of steamers, Southern Shores Crossing isn't a hotbed of commercial
Small
activity
businesses.
over there. And then you take Southern Shores Realty and you put those two parcels together, they're congruent to each other. That is one whopper piece of land. And it's owned by the same family, so. Yeah, I do think we need
Walmart
to.
Marketplace,
Or,
Walmart Marketplace would work.
I do
Small
think,
Costco.
I do think we need to limit individual business size. So,
Is the mom and pop part.
I mean, Marshall's is 24,000 square feet.
And how big
I
was
don't know,
Rack Room?
do we
6?
want to say 25,000, 15,000? And what do you think? For starters, I mean, gotta give
6.
huh?
He said the Rack Room shoe place is 6,000 square feet. That's big enough for any business. Any retail type business.
Marshall's is 24,000.
We don't want another.
Well,
Maybe we need some research on what is 10,000 square feet. Is a Panera bread store 10,000 square feet?
I'll see where this is going.
Well, but I'm just looking at,
How about a
again,
brewery? How
you
about,
talked to,
Yeah, a
how
brewery.
big is a brewery?
Bojangles or Chick-fil-A, we got to find out what that is.
yeah, that and say even like a Trader Joe's, I mean, a smaller grocery store. What would be
Total line.
10,000 feet? What would fit into that? And then we can have a vision of, okay, what the corner would look like versus, a big box, a big candy store that's
How about this?
20,000.
How about this, Wes? You just leave that blank and we'll fill it in. X amount of square
When
feet.
it comes back.
Is there anything with citing, like, we've got all these ugly places with giant parking lots in front of them. Do we flip that?
Yes, it's very, Jay, with Stewart, he had mentioned that when I said we were talking about, where y'all were talking about commercial design standards, he had said, when you ride up and down 158, he said, everything would look a lot better if they would bring the buildings forward and put
Yes.
parking in the back.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what you see more common in like
Mhm.
Raleigh,
There's something.
Apex, all that. So that's something else to consider as well.
Yeah, because they're ugly. They're ugly and they're hot.
All right, well, anybody got any additions or heartburn about getting Wes moving forward on some ZTA language?
No, I think it's a good idea. Take a look at it and
Well, thank y'all for your input and we'll work on drafting something and check on, make sure it's something these things are things we have the authority to do, obviously. And come back to you as soon as we can.
Yeah, and that footnote, where you pull some of this language from in these three ordinances that are in place right now, I think that would be helpful, for everybody.
Yes, sir.
I mean, obviously you can't footnote a ZTA, but if
Is
we
it-
have,
Is it too late to do that parking lot in the back
For marshals,
for whatever Saga comes up with?
they haven't submitted a site plan we would have to have the requirement in place when they
Right.
apply,
Okay. All right, so that's,
It has to
So
be,
it's
it
for-
has to be in effect when they apply.
those buildings are, the residential and commercial buildings there are probably bigger than 6,000 square feet. And there would be,
Would think so.
yeah, I mean, there's.
Yeah.
If I remember, they kind of hopscotch them, don't they? Residential, commercial, residential, commercial.
no, they're not like on top of each other. Residential on top.
But they're four separate buildings that
It was 3 or 4.
the rendering that they had. Okay. All right, well, if nobody's got anything more for this, we'll move over to accessory stuff. You talk about it for a few minutes. We're not going to try to solve the whole ball of wax right now, but I think it's need to at least open up for a little discussion on this.
Could accessory dwelling units be limited to one bedroom?
Probably.
That would be a big help.
Yeah. What now?
Except when we deal with these accessory dwelling units, which are happening all over.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. But that's in a single family dwelling. If it's an accessory, that's why, So I'll change that to maybe.
Well, I mean, that would be a big step.
You're saying limited to one
One
bedroom?
bedroom, if you're gonna have this, which we already have.
Well, we're gonna talk about it. And I took a few pictures of what I briefly told y'all about at the last meeting was two situations that I'm very familiar with. I've taken pictures of, and Wes has got site plan and permit and all. So if you can bring those kind of
You want pictures or permits first? Which one you want first? Pictures?
Maybe the pictures.
Yeah, I'm looking at garages with living space above them. How many people could be up there?
Okay, that's at 144 Beech Tree Trail.
Man, that's a house.
That's a one-bedroom tiny house. It's advertised as, I suspected it was on Airbnb. Well,
it's on air.
I was right. And, I mean, it's a cute little house.
Sure.
It was permitted as, no cooking.
On the permit, it says you cannot have, I'll bring it up. Hang on.
Kitchen with a stove.
You can't have a stove or oven and a bedroom. In this case, I think the permit says you cannot have a stove or oven. So 144 Beech Tree, issued on February 2nd, 2022, no stove or oven allowed.
But
And it was permitted as a accessory office/studio, which is an accessory structure. Now they're using it as a office/studio that has living space in it to rent it out.
mhm. And if you, can you pull up the Airbnb advertisement? I'm jumping you around too much. Okay. Tiny home or tiny house.
That's a refrigerator.
Could you show the kitchen, Wes? There.
No stove or oven.
Nope. But I also sent Wes a picture, or something I saw on, I don't know, Best Buy, 30-inch.
I don't have my picture.
I forgot that. But it's a 30-inch wide convection cooktop and convection oven that operates on 110 volt. So,
So is that another restriction, is 220 in the
yeah,
house?
well,
It
it's
says stove or-
cooking.
It says no stove or oven.
Yeah. Anyway, for me personally, my opinion is that, and if you got the site plan, Wes?
Do. Well, in this case, it's the as-built survey.
Yeah. If you can turn it or enlarge it, yeah, there you go. The tiny house is pretty close to the side in road setback.
27 feet from the front.
Hmm.
27.8 feet from the front.
From the what?
Front property line.
Right.
Is it tied into the main house septic?
No. Oh, yeah, the new septic, wasn't it?
I don't know, I don't recall about this one.
I thought you said they put in a new septic.
I don't recall. I'd have to look, I'd have to go back and look.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's right, it's 2.5 feet back off the setback at the road. Yeah, the sideline's a little bit less tight, but for all intents and purposes, it's sitting out there at the street. And it was permitted to, if they had a stove or an oven, Wes, you couldn't have a bed. Is that correct? That's how it was interpreted from the zoning ordinance that's in place right now as far as accessory dwelling goes, right?
Accessory structure.
Structure.
Accessory building with living space.
You could have a stove or an oven, but no bed, or you could have a bed and no stove or oven. Well, how hard is it to go to Best Buy and buy this convection oven and stick it in there? I mean, you know, it's just,
When he did this, I actually spoke against this ordinance way back when it was, because the other thing is, put a stove in and get a pull-out bed, you know? It's so easy to get around this. It's,
it is. But, you know, let's face it, Airbnb is here to stay.
Yeah.
And I have no issue at all with Airbnb. I've stayed in them. And I have no issue with them. But if you read, I think it's probably farther down on the Airbnb site here, it tells you how to negotiate through all the states. Well, they say North Carolina is one of the easiest states for regulation against Airbnb. It's wide open. It's like, you know, You can do anything you want to in North Carolina.
It's not untrue.
No. But I think that we need to work towards moving that structure closer to the house and have it attached to the house. Let them still use it as an Airbnb. If we got to figure out, the difference between an oven and a bed, I don't see how that has any huge impact on
No.
what we decide to do here, but
To talk about attaching to the house, Wes, does the ARB still contact you? No. Okay. I know for a fact on the covenants in certain areas, and Seacrest Village is one of them, you have to have the accessory structure attached to the house by a walkway or something.
that's a covenant.
That's a covenant.
Right.
And if it's a shame they don't work, like we used to review that, and if it wasn't attached, we would not approve it. And it's a shame that they can't, there's no coordination
Wow.
between the two anymore. I mean, it's just a tool that can be used. It's just a tool. And there is other there's other covenants throughout, because there's a million covenants. But there's other covenants that says the same thing. And I had a review actually, because we disapproved something. And I had to review everything east of 12 between Hickory and 13th, every house. It was a lot of fun to find out which ones had accessories that were not attached. And there was some, but the vast majority, they had some type of attachment. And it's something that,
Well,
if there's only coordination between the
So what is our objective? Is our objective to regulate ADUs? Or is it to ban ADUs?
No,
Or is it to figure out how we can get them to work within the confines of our development?
Well, imagine that, and there's a lot of property that you could put a tiny house like this on.
Oh, sure.
A lot of property in Southern Shores. Is that what we want in our neighborhood? I mean, if you can put the same amount of people up and be a part of the house aesthetically, I think it would look a lot better if what they did there was an addition onto the house that was attached with a deck or covered.
it's covered.
But
So this one on Ocean Boulevard that they built, it's over a garage, but I would call it an ADU because I'm
Oh, it
sure it
is.
has bedrooms and a kitchen and everything
Definitely
else.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it looks like it's a detached garage.
it is, and once again, it doesn't have cooking, so you're allowed sleeping.
Oh, it doesn't have cooking.
It does not have a
Not,
stove.
not being applied for.
Gotcha.
I gotta find it.
Isn't there one on?
I think being attached would keep it down, because if you're gonna go
Bill,
to an Airbnb and you're attached, and there's another group of people over there, you don't wanna be.
yep, so accessory structure garage with living space above, no stove or oven allowed.
But that living space above, the conditioned space is pushing 1,000 square feet, 988 square feet of conditioned space over top of that.
Yeah.
That would be, that isn't even a tiny house there.
No.
The one on Beech Tree is 432 square feet.
It's a 3-bay garage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's for the main house.
with,
It's a 3-bay garage with living space above.
can you go to the pictures of that, Ocean Boulevard?
Mouse pad control.
You looking for one?
Whoa, go back. That's 2 doors down from the one on Beach Street, an old friend of mine's house. That is a detached accessory structure. It is not a dwelling unit,
Right.
but it could be if,
Yeah.
They could modify it.
yeah. But there's a lot of freestanding garages,
Mhm.
shores, that do just what that is. That's a garage and a workshop.
And we have on Ocean Boulevard, a few flat tops that have those detached structures that were guest houses or maids quarters or.
Their maids' quarters.
So even back then, they had some sort of accessory, structure with living space. This is 110 Ocean Boulevard facing
Yeah,
from the
that-
north.
That's a 3-car garage.
Mhm.
And it's got a bedroom, laundry room, big bathroom, big living, kind of a kitchenette, but no cooking, no,
But a refrigerator,
it's got a refrigerator, it doesn't have a stove
right.
or oven, although I don't know if you would classify a microwave. I mean, they're called microwave ovens.
Yeah, most of them are gonna have a microwave. A lot of people say, I don't wanna cook anyway.
To me, you're splitting hairs saying, well, you can't have a 110, 30-inch convection cooktop in there and sleep up there at the same time. You take your choice. I think we're splitting hairs.
I think that it needs to be attached to the structure, so whoever's got the main house is living with whoever.
Well, go to 54 Ocean Boulevard. Or actually go to the other side of that picture, Wes, looking from the south to that's facing north. I think I got one. Yeah.
No, that's still from the north.
Yeah, that's still from the north, just got closer.
That's still from the north. That's just on a
Yeah.
cutting green.
Yeah, I think I had one from the other side, didn't I?
Not in here.
I didn't.
Andy,
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
here it
right
is.
there.
This is it, yeah. This is it.
That's it. A lot of people go, no, there's 2 houses on one lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
absolutely. They need to attach it to that house and let it live with its own.
Well, I know the builder, he's,
But you're gonna be miserable.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
a long walkway.
Or your guests are gonna
But-
be miserable.
Anyway, it was permitted. It's marginal, what the intent is, we know. So I guess what I'm saying is, if they're gonna do something like that,
Push them together.
attach them.
Is,
Fight it out.
walkway, is that attached?
Well, go to 54. You seen, okay, that's a freestanding garage. It's attached by a deck, and that's it. There is a garage, living space above. It's not a bedroom, it's a rec room, but it could be a bedroom if it was plumbed. I've got some capability to turn it into a bedroom.
Does it have a bathroom?
It has a bathroom and a little kitchenette with a little refrigerator and no stove. It does have a microwave oven, but it's attached.
Yeah.
To the main house.
Gotta have at least that.
And I think, yeah, that footprint is 20 by 26, so it's 520 square feet. That could be a a tiny house.
So is it the attached, but is there a distance requirement?
Well, that's what we gotta talk about.
Can we have a sidewalk from the little tiny house?
No, I would say, that however we gotta eliminate sidewalks as being part of the attachment criteria. No, it would need to be a substantial, deck or other, way to, I mean, you could even put a cover over it and walk from one to the other with a cover.
What about, because you have living space, there's only one egress point?
In this one, well, no, there's two in this one.
No, I mean, but if you're upstairs, do you have steps to go downstairs?
I don't know.
And if the place caught on fire, you gotta get out through that door, right? There's no other door to get out.
I would have to defer to the building inspector on that one.
Well, I think that the accessory dwelling units should be detached. I mean, attached.
Attached, yeah.
Attached, that's the starting. And then it's like, what is the, because they'll do all kinds of ways of attaching it. They'll run a couple of 2x6s over and
Well,
touching it.
I would say that we would need to craft some kind of criteria that it was attached with, however you're going to describe how that's detached or attached. And it's got to be a certain amount of distance. I hear it. Russians.
I don't know what that is. It just
Oh,
stopped.
Ah, there you go.
Was it down there?
I was leaning down to see, but it's not.
It stopped.
It's a microwave.
Well, ADUs are a big, big thing.
What's that?
I said ADUs are a
Sure
big,
they are.
big thing.
Absolutely.
And we got a lot of states that are all for them
Mhm.
because of senior citizens and for families taking
Yeah.
care of seniors.
And making money.
And making money.
Well, that is true. And unfortunately, I don't know how we can differentiate or stipulate if they're gonna put a family in it or rent it. Although we do have, taking care of someone in a, a facility or a ADU.
Well,
Does that have to be attached or detached?
that's the question. In my opinion, it needs to be attached. I mean, when I built this house for my cousin, he wasn't old then, but he's old now. He's 76 years old. He's still in good shape, but their thought was to have a caregiver live in that
Right.
facility there at some point in time.
Right.
And I've got it plumbed where we can knock out a closet and create a shower if we had to. Wouldn't be much cooking there, but that would be perfectly legal. Or would it, Wes? Long-term?
Long-term for,
If someone wanted to come, if I went in and revamped that to have a shower and put somebody, a caregiver in there for my cousin who wanted to stay in the house, the main house, they can stay there long-term, can't they?
yeah, there's no,
Yeah.
there's no time limit on designated time for
Right.
how long someone can be in there, in that space.
But
So the
that,
only criteria is the stove and oven and bedroom, and then the amount of living,
What's with what
number of square foot of living space.
right. And
What'd you say about the
that
bedroom?
is a
it is?
attached
have-
You
accessory
can only
dwelling
have,
unit.
you can have bedroom, no stove and oven, or stove and oven, but no bedroom.
The older ones. It's the newer ones that are.
You get people, that tiny house concept is catching on like wildfire. I'm telling you, you can buy kits to build a
Okay.
tiny house.
But I'm gonna throw water on the discussion. What we passed last week was a requirement from the state of North Carolina to meet their language. And so you can put a stove in there, and all you have to do is
Yeah.
say, this is a den, this is a library, this is a blah, blah, blah. The town has no regulation on how you furnish that property. They only have regulation on what you label it when you get your permit.
So you're saying you could call that, a pet dwelling for your cats and dogs?
You could say that's a
And, but you
library.
put somebody in there and collect rent from it and you're good to go? I disagree.
The health department, they usually the one to look into determining if it is or is not a bedroom, but we
Is
also
that
look into
closet,
that.
call it a water closet.
But I think the issue at hand is, for me, it's more aesthetic. Do we want an accessory dwelling unit up closer to the house?
Yeah.
Or do we want it out at the street or in the middle of a lot next to a great big, another house of almost equal size?
I think if you have it, the closer you can get it to the main house and physically attached, then that's a self-limiting feature. It's gonna reduce the usage from, just straight out, oh, it's an Airbnb.
Well, so be it. I mean, if they wanted to do an Airbnb there, they could,
Well, I know,
likewise.
and the closer you put it together, the more discriminating they're gonna be as to who's in
Well,
there.
and aesthetically, I mean, we create ordinances for aesthetics all the time. Some are for safety, some are for convenience, and some are for aesthetics. I have nothing, no complaint about, accessory dwelling units. Just, they need to be in the proper context. And if they're detached, every other example in our handout there from Wes shows them being attached to the structure. The one in the top left could easily, the drawing could easily look like that.
Yeah.
With something attaching.
Well, and I can see from an aesthetic standpoint that we'd like to have the ADU have a direct relationship to the primary structure
Yeah.
in look, design, maybe a physical connection like you're suggesting. It has to have a direct relationship to the primary structure and must be adjacent to the primary structure, no more than 10 feet away or something.
Mhm.
I don't know, because maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the one over at my cousin's is, I don't know, it's 15 feet from the edge of the house to the edge of the structure, I would say.
But like the guy that is on your street that's got the garage in the middle, more in the middle of the lot, and but it's fairly close to the house. That might work. But the one that is out by the street, that structure clearly has no relationship whatsoever with the primary structure.
No, it's not even painted the same color.
There you go. It's that kind of
Right.
thing. It's like,
The
if
roof
it was
is
up by
different.
the house and it was painted the same color and the same roof pitch, the same sort of design
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. If you didn't have the walkway going over to this detached garage and it was still used as an accessory unit, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, it still looks like it's part of the
Right.
Well, and
primary
it can
structure.
still do the same thing. I mean, you're sympathetic, and the older I get, the more I'm thinking about it, but, we're trying to, people are trying to age in place more and more and more and more. Well, that's how my cousin thinks he's gonna age in place.
Right.
And we should be aware of that, but we can't. The flip side, like Ed said, is making money, which that's what the tiny house on Beech Tree is doing. They've built a nice little unit out there, and it's, they're gonna pay for it, and, a few years, it'll be paid for and Airbnb will be the ones that did it.
But they probably still make the money if it were attached.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
the question is, that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And then I was asking Wes, I mean, can you have an accessory dwelling unit, a shed, and another structure, the house, all on the same lot? Can you explain that one?
I can, yes, sir. So there's one part of the town code, the zoning ordinance says you can have one principal structure and its associated or customary accessory building is what it says. And then if you look in section 36-202B, it says customary, I'll bring it up. It shows, says something to the effect of customary accessory buildings and structures. So what we were looking at, what we've been looking at earlier, based on the new definition used for occupancy, the accessory structure or building, rather, like the pictures we saw, Ocean Boulevard, the structure you took pictures of your cousins, that I would say that's a building. Swimming pool structure, I would say a shed, a storage shed is a structure. But I don't think, based on the definitions and based on one principal building per lot and its customary accessory building, I don't think you could have more than one of these buildings on a lot.
Well, 3694 says one principal building on any lot. Only one principal building and its customary accessory building
Right.
may hereafter be erected on any lot. It
What's the
says,
customary?
it says customary accessory building,
What is,
singular.
so what
not
is that particular?
Well,
Incidental, subordinate,
Customary building? Of a customary building.
but I think the intent of 3694 was one building, one shed, one building, one freestanding garage.
Okay.
That was the intent. The customary accessory building would be that picture in the woods on Beach Street with the freestanding garage.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what comes to mind for what an accessory building would be. But it's singular. It says building, not buildings. And then in 36202, what Wes said, customary accessory buildings and structures are permitted use. And they include but not limited to swimming pools, tennis courts, and garages, provided no dwelling unit is located in the accessory structure. Seems to me that we got to clean up a little bit of how that all, what that all says, and be a little bit more consistent with what it is to keep Wes from having to interpret stuff
Well, they're
that's a
not-
little bit ambiguous. If we can spell it out in black and white,
Except at this point, like over the garage on Ocean Boulevard where you are, it's not a dwelling unit.
what?
The thing over the 3-car garage or the thing over yours. According to this, I thought the example said that a dwelling unit had to have stove and bedroom.
Well,
and
and
that will, based on the new definition of dwelling unit, it has to have all of those things. If it doesn't
Right.
have all of those things, then it's not a dwelling unit.
So our code is technically correct at this point. You can't have a dwelling unit. You can have an Airbnb place where people can sleep and pay you to stay there, but you can't have a true dwelling unit.
Well, I maintain that those 4 definitions that we voted on to approve, and now they're, in the definitions, because town council approved them. I maintain that we need to clean up the language, how they plug into the ordinances.
Okay.
And why not allow what we know is occurring anyway? Why not allow in that detached or any of that? Why not allow an oven in the greenhouse in the top left-hand corner? An oven in the greenhouse and an oven in the little red accessory dwelling unit. What's wrong with that?
Not a thing. I don't suppose.
The reason why the planning board and the council at the time, when they adopted these current requirements, is so as to avoid increasing density. If it's not a dwelling unit, you're not increasing the density,
Right.
but
But
it is what it is.
the density is controlled by the septic capacity. It should be. So if you've got enough room to do that, and let's face it, Airbnb is here. It's not going anywhere. I don't see the density increasing just because you got
With the
an
dwelling
oven in
unit,
there.
yeah, density is based on dwelling units per acre.
Right.
So if you add one dwelling unit every 40,000, we see minimum lot size 20,000 square feet, you have two lots, two single-family dwellings every 40,000 square feet. If you allow one or more per you're doubling it.
But with or without a stove, what's the impact on,
People still live in it and still use it. That's the thing.
Exactly.
so why not gear the ordinance more towards, 2023 rather than, 10 years ago when there was no Airbnb business? I think that we need to modernize what is occurring in the ordinances.
The good thing about that is that people that are doing these things above garages get the permits up front, and all that stuff would be the code as opposed to, going, in the back door.
Yeah.
Well, and
Circumventing.
and this is part of this discussion. I mean, it's all for a little bit more, chewing on, but, up until the legislature said that you can't require registration for shared housing, Airbnb, VRBO, the legislature has struck that down. That's what this Canon Coates is, what the town of Wilmington went through in their lawsuit that they lost. So there is no registration process anymore. Nags Head, when Cliff was there, they were able to register the Airbnbs that were doing business in town. Do they still do it? Well, by law, they can't. But
They can or cannot.
they cannot because the legislature restricts registration. Read this blog here. This guy spells it out really good. It's easy to read. But anyway, I really feel strongly that we need to know who these people are, what they're doing. I don't care about charging any money. I just want some kind of registration. Well, we can't do it. I mean, we cannot do it. So it's like the Wild Wild West out there. There's a house down the street from me that advertises sleeps 12, and it's sized for 8-person septic capacity. They've got an upstairs Airbnb and a downstairs Airbnb in one house. Sleeps 12. You can rent half or all. As a town, we need to know what's going on a little bit better than that. Because it is increasing density without us even being able to regulate it one iota. I don't think it's right. But if you read, and I think this would be something that everybody needs to look at, on page 7 of 10, this is where town staff and our attorney need to get creative. The heading says require development approvals for short-term rentals. And that's a good read. I'm not gonna read it now, but if you read that section, it kind of says, and I'll read the conclusion because the conclusion sums it up pretty good. He says, based on state law and the Schrader case, which is the first part of this blog, a local government may not impose a registration requirement on short-term rental operations. Moreover, regulations and standards that are inextricably linked to a registration requirement may be struck down. But local governments still have authority to regulate short-term rentals through common development regulation and police power ordinances focused on public health and safety. So it can't be a registration per se, but we can zone things to make people come forward and comply a little bit. I don't know. But the ADU is one part of the equation because that's what it's being used for, is by and large, Airbnb stuff. So, food for thought. But it's a two-pronged thing where, what do we do about, getting accessory dwelling unit closer to the house? Do we say that if it's detached from the house, it can't be rented? I mean, that's another way of eliminating something like that guy that wanted a 3-day garage. So
Gonna be tricky.
anyway, Wes, as far as, doing any kind of redo on or modernizing what our intent for accessory dwelling units. I mean, they weren't called, it was an accessory unit or accessory building, I believe, is what people wanted to call it. I mean, what you're saying is there was a push to turn it into a living space without a stove.
Yeah, they wanted to allow accessory buildings with living space, provided that it was not a dwelling unit. So that it was consistent with our land use plan for low density, primarily low density residential properties. A low density community. And that will be another hurdle if you do want to outright allow accessory dwelling units and increase the dwellings, then we would have to amend our land use plan.
Well, I mean, I think, we're trying to say that we're not really allowing it, but yet we really are. And I mean, we might as well allow it and just,
We'll be the first beach town to do it,
what?
allow ADUs. I mean, the first.
I mean, well, the tiny house on Beach Tree, what is that? I mean, what is that? What is your definition of that tiny house? Is it an accessory dwelling unit?
Any number of garages in town right here, right now.
I'm talking about, flip back over to Beach Tree, Wes, if you would. That,
That one,
yeah, I mean, what do you call that?
the house.
A tiny house? Is that what we want to allow?
As long as it's attached to that big house over there.
Does it matter? The intent of what they're doing there is clear. Does it matter that,
It has no support or relationship whatsoever to the main structure.
right,
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
But even if that went all the way up to the house was attached, like my cousin's, accessory dwelling unit, or whatever we want to call it, it's still the same thing. I mean, if we move that up to the house, it's legal, it's attached.
Yeah.
And it's going to be used for an Airbnb more than likely, or overflow family, one or the other, take your pick. But the same amount of people are going to inhabit it, whether it's family or Airbnb, or it has the capability.
I started reading the Coates Cannon thing, and I'm gonna have to read it again. It makes, with a highlighter,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. But I think that in order to, if we're going to try to regulate and allow ADUs, we already have them. If we want to regulate short-term rental and ADU, I think we probably have to have Jay Wheelis or somebody in the room with us. It's like, can we do this? How do we do it? Here's our intent. What does the law allow us to do to move toward that? Because I think we can come up with some stuff, and Wes can come up with some stuff. And it's a very thin needle we're trying to thread.
If,
We would, when I say town staff, the town attorney would have input on drafting.
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay, good.
oh yeah, but if you took that tiny house and pushed it up to the house and attached it, and it had the exact same purpose that it has right now, which is Airbnb, is there a problem with that? I don't think so. And the fact that these people it's only one bedroom. I mean, do we limit in size or, but if they've got the room to put that on their property and create an Airbnb, then so be it. The criteria is you can have a bed and no oven or stove, or if you have an oven or stove, you can't have a bed. What difference does it make? I mean, they're going to use it. Why don't we modernize? And if we got to, change our land use language a little bit to allow for accessory dwelling units, and
Yeah.
that's what we got to do. But
The question is, are we opening Pandora's box? I agree with you, and I think if that structure was moved to the house, it would look god awful. I mean, it looks better where it is versus moved close to the house. But the question is septic. I mean, once we put a stove and a refrigerator and a kitchen, yes, this is supposed to be a couple. Well, now they got their kids. And now we got even, 4 people using a 1 bathroom. And it's going into the same septic field that, you know what I'm saying? So what are we creating,
well,
you
it's,
know?
like I said, it's two different issues. One is, do we want to have, whatever you want to call that, if we're not calling it an accessory dwelling unit, then it's a detached living
Right,
quarters,
right.
whatever you want to call it. But as far as it being attached to the house, it wouldn't, I'm not talking about just taking exactly that and squishing on the house. I mean, you'd have to get creative about, attaching it. But anyway.
Well, it's just incongruous with the whole
It is.
lay of the land.
Yeah,
I want to know where they park.
on the grass or on
There are
the,
2 spaces designated in front of that structure.
yeah,
There's 2 spaces designated in front.
yeah.
But
right where all those leaves
It's,
are.
it looks just like the rest of the lot. It's
They're not
just-
paved or anything, but they're shown,
No,
they're
it's-
shown they were shown on the site plan and they're shown on the as-built survey where they contribute to coverage.
It's just mulch.
Yeah.
So-
They're parking on the septic field.
But maybe. I
Repeat
think
yourself.
the issue is, do we allow what I would say that is an ADU with or without a stove in it, it is an accessory dwelling unit that people dwell in, they live in.
Yeah.
So we call it an accessory dwelling unit. And we do away with, mutually exclusive language that says bed, no oven, oven, no bed. I mean, that just seems crazy to me.
I'm in agreement with what you're saying, and I think I would support moving forward with trying to develop that. I don't have any idea about our council and whether there's any appetite for approving ADUs under any circumstances. I have no idea.
Well, I'm gonna probably set up something with the mayor and Wes, and maybe Cliff, to see just,
Can we
because
get down this road? That'd be great.
I know, the mantra is property rights.
Property rights.
Well,
Yeah.
And a lot of people on that street feel like their property rights have been violated by that thing being out in the street.
Yeah.
Finger on the eye there.
Well, it's not just, Southern Shores is, it's citizenry and our opinions, but, it's the state legislature. That's a mantra.
Yeah.
That we all must live with. So,
Well, like I said, I probably spend a little bit more time just hitting on it tonight, but I definitely want to kind of narrow down our focus and get, something that we, can maybe implement into a slight modernizing of where we're at right now in accessory structures that people live in for whatever they're called. So,
that's great. I think it's a good,
but yeah, I would, if you read this Coates Canon, I mean, Adam Lovelady is one of the premier land use guys in North Carolina. And it's a really easy read, and it's for the layman, and how we could somehow take a peek into what's being done here would be in some type of zoning regulations that we can zone people into maybe not registering by the word registration, but it's something that I think is possible to do that we can kind of figure out. I mean, I would like to know if my neighbor next door to me was renting their house out to 12 people when, they were only sized for 8 in the septic tank. It just, that's where the density issue comes into play. Whether it's in the land use plan or not, that's what we're striving for.
I think the only way you can do that is to do your own spying.
Well, moving forward in time from 10 years ago, things have changed, and shared housing is one of them that we're not taking into account right now. I mean, because they've permitted those two out there on the ocean front and on Beech Tree on the fact that there's no cooking.
Yeah.
We know what they're going to do. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that for right now. But I would say, please read that blog. It's good. All right. I don't have the agenda in front of me. What's next?
Public comment.
Public comment.
Done.
We'll move on from public comment. Planning board comments. Jan, got anything? Tony?
Nothing.
Jan?
I'm good.
Announcements. Wes, what's the future? for
Next meeting is back to Mondays, third Monday of the month, March 20th. And as you all saw in my email, I think Jan Collins, welcome as a regular member.
We need one more alternate, big time.
Yeah.
Got it? Know anybody?
Actually, I gave a name to Elizabeth and she's approached her and, so.
Good.
I think she'll.
Elizabeth told me she knew a couple that might be interested.
Elizabeth
An
Hurley.
actual husband, wife, and
Oh, okay.
so maybe it's the same gal, I don't know.
Yeah,
But no, definitely.
yeah. Elizabeth and Dave. She asked about Dave and I said, what about Elizabeth? So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I know she asked Elizabeth because Elizabeth said something to me. She says, you're on the planning board, aren't you? And I said, yeah. So, yeah.
Well, we need- we
Younger,
need more.
younger. Yeah.
Young and female would be two high marks as far as I'm concerned. Anything else, Wes, on the radar for?
That's all I've got.
Well, I will be talking with Wes a little bit more on what we talked about, the second half of tonight's meeting, and I'll do a little free consulting work with my cousin, David Owens. So he's a pretty good source for figuring out how to do something. So, but anyway, I would like to get, the mayor involved in this and see what she thinks, because we're kind of shooting in the dark right now. Anyway,
Okay.
if you don't have anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? I don't want to stay here. All right,